Hello, everybody, and Afreilichen almost Purim. Welcome to the podcast on the Sicha for Project Likutei Sichas, where we unpack one of the weekly Sichas and discuss it, bring about it, and bring its lessons into our lives. I am Rabbi Shmuley Nachlas in Toronto, Canada, joined by my good friends, Rabbi Yisrael Willem, Boulder, Colorado, and Rabbi Moshe Gurari in Toms River, New Jersey. The Sicha today that we're going to be learning, discussing, and unpacking is again from Chelek Chavav, the Sicha of Tisa Aleph. So just to ask a question and to sort of to open up, we find a very interesting paradox with money. Money is dirty. They say money is dirty. And it's actually quite literally so, because the old-fashioned coin comes from the earth. You got to dig it up, and sometimes you got to dig real deep. And contrast that with Avodas Hashem, with our neshama, with the work of spirituality. It's like worlds apart, and it makes sense that these should be, very separate worlds. And yet, in this week's parsha, we talk about the Machzis HaShekel. And the Rebbe is going on to what a spiritual journey, what an unbelievable thing. We're talking about money. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Moshe to talk to us a little bit about the Machzis HaShekel and open up the Sicha for us.
Okay, so it is a Sicha on Tisa, which begins with the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel, which began in the Midbar, where the Eibishter, God Almighty, commanded every year through Moshe Rabbeinu to give a half shekel, not more, not less, but a half shekel. And this would serve lechaper al nafshei seichem, to atone for the souls of the Jewish people who partook in the sin of the Egel Azav, of the golden calf. And the Rebbe begins with a Tisa that explains that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't figure out how can one find atonement for a soul with something physical. And because of that, Hashem showed him a coin of fire, matbeya shel eish, and supposedly this answers Moshe's question. And the Rebbe basically says, what was bothering Moshe? What was really his question? Well, we know that Gashmias could lead to Ruchni, something, a physical act could have spiritual value. So really, what's bothering Moshe? And before we understand that, we also don't understand Hashem's question. How does the coin of fire actually answer the question of Moshe Rabbeinu? And the Rebbe introduces something that, at least to me, it's taking me days and days to really truly understand it, and I could only go as far as my brain can understand. But the way I'm understanding it is the Rebbe introduces an incredible chiddush, something brand new with regards to the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel. And in short, and to try to say the shortest possible, the Rebbe says that everything runs in a system. There's a Seder HaHishtalshlus, which is the system of creation. Higher is higher, lower is lower. Even when you fuse the two, you still keep the order of things, the order of the worlds, the order of the levels, and they're all intertwined. When it came to Machzis HaShekel, the Eibishter introduced something to the world where the physical and the spiritual become transformed into actually being one and the same. Matbeya shalesh, matbeya represents a coin, which represents the physical. The eish represents spirituality, which we could still talk about, and they became one thing. And the Eibishter is saying to Moshe Rabbeinu that it is possible to fuse together the spiritual and the physical, not just where the physical is infused with spirituality, but they actually become one and the same. And I guess we should explore this a little bit to realize how this answers Moshe's question, what is it, and how it applies to us, especially since we can't see this. In the shir that I gave, I said it sounds like putting a round peg into a square hole. It's not something. The truth is, a round peg in a square hole does work. It's the square peg in the round hole that doesn't work if they're both the same size. But either way, it's physically seems impossible, and yet this is something unique about the Machzis HaShekel.
Yes, I mean, I don't know if I should continue on the chiddush of what you said, or we should go back to what Moshe Rabbeinu's question was. Moshe, which one should we do here?
Let's one thing at a time. We could start with a question, and then we'll go back to the answer.
It's always beautiful when you're on the Rebbe Sicha, because the Rebbe needs very clear answers. And Moshe Rabbeinu is obviously Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's, there's Chachmas Shel Torah. So if he doesn't understand something, then clearly there's something beyond the norm going on here. This is already, Matan Torah already happened, so you already understood Matan Torah, you understood mitzvahs, and suddenly there's this one mitzvah here that he's just simply not understanding how it could work. As the Rebbe says, every shtot magid, everybody understands, and Yodi Moshe Rabbeinu understand that you do a mitzvah and you get reward. But clearly, this is not just a regular reward, because kofer nafshay, the idea of this redemption in your neshama, in the deepest part of your neshama, when you give a coin, seems a very extreme way. So it's very nice that you help someone, you can get reward for it, but it doesn't seem like it's a schar over here. It seems like this is something magical happening. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is struggling with. He's trying to understand what could be greater than everything that's happened in Torah until now. And to me, this is, again, I'm just trying to simplify the question of Moshe, and we can, before we go on, anybody, if you have any comments about the question before we go to the answer, just making sure that we're good.
Well, just to reiterate what you're saying is that the concept, like Moshe was saying in Seder Hishtalshlus, which means in the structure and even the structure of above structure and doing great things, the idea that you could take a mezuzah, you could take a cloth, you could take a parchment and make tefillin out of it, make a Torah out of it and make it holy, or you could take tzedakah and do something good with it and infuse it with energy and with life and with fire and elevate it. I mean, this is basic 101 Judaism. This is Matan Torah at its best, Tachtoidim and Elyonim, the upper and lower worlds, and that is the system of, yes, as the upper, the lower, interconnection of the two, bring it together. How do you do it? How is it exciting? How do you elevate the world? Like you said, Dir b'Tachtoidim, you're changing the world. This is all within amazing things and within, so this is certainly can't be, that's what you're saying, is this can't be the issue Moshe Rabbeinu was having with Machzah Shech. So what really is bothering him, and what's at the core of the story that we're trying to sort of break down? Like, what's happening here? What's unique about this mitzvah? Yeah.
I want to throw a twist into Moshe Rabbeinu's question, and I don't know that this is actually the question, but I really shouldn't speak for Moshe Rabbeinu, but this is like a.
Your name is Moshe, so you're
very good. Like the Rebbe Rashab says about Tanya, that if it'll help in Avodas Hashem, then even if it's not the pshat, Megman does Zogan. But here's the thing, and I'm sort of basing this on a vart that I heard, or explanation that I heard on Tanya from Rabbi Manis Friedman, where he says that when you look, a lot of people say, now Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that a tzaddik is someone who doesn't do Avedis. He's ein lo yetzer hara. You're going to say, what kind of approach is that? It's impossible. We're human beings. So he said, that's because we're looking at it from the bottom up. From where we are, we see the world, we see Gashmias. We can't fathom the concept of not doing an Aveda. He says, but if you look at it from above, looking at it down, that a Yid's neshama is a Chelek Lekam mimal mamish, then the question isn't how does he not sin? The question isn't, how is it possible not to sin? The question is, how does he sin? How is it shaykh for a neshama to do an Aveda? The perspective that the Alter Rebbe teaches is that the natural state of a neshama is to not do an Aveda. So now comes Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, on the one hand, how is it shaykh for a person to do an Aveda? Now, if a person did do an Aveda, how are you going to bring the Chapel Nafshisechem? When a person does an Aveda, the person removed himself from being the Ruchnius, the Neshama that he is, so to speak. He removed himself from the Gashmius, from the Ruchnius. Now he's just a sinner. So how is it shaykh b'chlal for there to be a lechapal nafshesechem? You're going to give tzedakah, you're going to give a coin, you're going to do a mitzvah. What is it that could create kapara? When a person basically announced that I'm severing myself from my true essence, which is my neshama, which is a piece of elikus.
Really, you're asking. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, when Moshe says, Eich yachol davar ma lechapar nefesh, I don't remember the exact words for the Sicha. How could something be mechaper? The nefesh just went off the highway and lost direction. How are you going to get it back on? That is Moshe's question.
I mean, just to
maybe
throw
not literally. Go ahead.
Just to throw a spin into it, because I always like bringing it back to, the interaction we have. Our relationship with Hashem is a reflection also. Obviously, Yisrael and obviously Hashem is all one. It's a question of between Ben Adam and Chaveri as well. How do you let go? How do you have forgiveness? Typically it's a lot easier to say you're out, you're off the highway, you're done, I'm done with you. How does it work? What's the mechanism that would allow this? What is Machsa Shekel bringing to the table that allows opposites to come together? Because there's an opposite situation that's happening here, right? And you're out, you're off the highway. I don't want to talk to you ever again. Don't call me, lose my number. I don't need you in my life anymore, right? So what happens here? So I guess that's
Yeah, I mean, so just to move on to the answer, that's I guess to make sure. That's why this mitzvah Hashem says has to come from a place that no other mitzvah comes from. It's not like you're putting on tefillin or doing anything ruchni and with gashmias, and you're becoming a more spiritual person. There's a greater chiddush over here. It's a chiddush like Ma'aser Bereishis, the Rebbe says. It's as novel as the creation of Yesh Ma'ayin has to come from the Eibusher himself, from the highest level, which is represented through Eish. It has to be fire. Because if it comes from anywhere else, maybe it doesn't make sense. And maybe it's not logical how we can ever fix this kind of issue and this problem. But when it comes from the same kind of novelty as the creation of the world, which is above the whole system, basically. The system is not important, not relevant. Okay. It's as even somebody that we learn so many sichas, and we speak about dir b'tachtonim, every single sicha, and the novelty of dir b'tachtonim is specifically that we have to remain who we are, right? That's who we are, right? That's the whole chiddush of dir b'tachtonim, is that we shouldn't go beyond. And this sicha is saying there are moments that actually we have to break the rules of even this system and connect to the Atzmus alone, and have the ability over there to do tshuva, to Chab Nefesh Seichem, or even with Shmuley, I want to bring it back to what you were saying, how to connect with somebody after they made a mistake. Moshe, we cannot hear you.
Moshe, your mic turned off, Moshe. Can't hear you.
Shmuley, take it away then.
Yeah, I mean, before
now you're back.
Yeah, go ahead, Moshe. Yeah, go ahead, Moshe.
Sorry. No, my thing cut off for a minute, so
that's okay. Before we go so one step further, Yisrael, I want to break that down a little more for our listeners and for ourselves. I think. What are we saying? Okay, you're saying go beyond. You're going beyond. What does that mean here? Because I know that the regular systems, of back and forth, we understand. But here we're talking about a situation of off the rails. We're talking a situation of you're off the highway. You're not even entirely connected. You did a Avera. How's it connected? One to now come Machsa Shekel, and this is the mitzvah that fixes it. So I understand what you're saying in words, that this is higher than all of that, and this is you're reaching into your highest levels beyond. Say that what's actually happening here before we get to the relationship aspect, and explain that just a little further. Like, what is the chiddush? So this is the biggest chiddush. It's a huge chiddush of a kind of a mitzvah. It's beyond even like, tzedakah, where you're doing something using your money, hard-earned money that you made, and you're elevating, you're doing a mitzvah, or like we said before, the example.
When you're doing tzedakah, the coin itself, nothing happens to the coin itself. Right. The coin remains a coin, and you help somebody, so you get close.
So what happens here? So what happened here?
This is different. I'll ask Moshe. I actually listened to 2 of Moshe's shiurim, and he's brilliantly this week, and he brilliantly does struggle with this and explain this so beautifully. So let him go ahead over here.
So Moshe, explain us what's happening here.
Okay, I'm gonna step back a little bit, because at the end of the day, any example that I'm going to bring is only going to be a partial example, because this is something that's beyond anything that I can think of an example to. But
1 second, is it possible you can't give an example of it? It's like giving a color that you've never seen. Like, this is actually something that's not together. This is not in the world of comprehension, really.
Right.
You're trying to reach out of our realm a bit.
Exactly. But in order to get there, I wanted to share an anecdote, a very well-known anecdote. When the Rebbe visited camp in, I don't know which visit it was, the Rebbe went into the canteen where they sold snacks, and there was a sign on the wall that said, "Money is the root of all evil. Leave your evil here." It was like a bumper sticker. The Rebbe saw the sign, and the Rebbe commented that it's not true. Money is not the root of all evil. Money could be used for good, money could be used for bad. It really depends on the person who's using it and what they're using it for. It's a cute story, but Be'etzem Gedet, it's a very, very deep, deep story, that there's two perspectives of looking at something. There is the normal perspective, which would be that there's good and there's bad. There's above, there's below. And that's how I know that when we learn Chassidus, we're able to move those borders a little bit. We understand there's a lot of toiv and a little bit of ra, but b'chlalis, even in our human minds, we're always going to, there's good, it's black and white. Gray becomes very difficult for us. But even gray is a mishachts, gray is a mixture of black and white. And the Rebbe comes and teaches us, I'm still in that story of the money is the root of all evil, that we should look at something as good or bad. We should look at something as it has incredible potential. And therefore, what we do with it is really what will determine if it's good or bad. In other words, let's not lock it into a box. Let's take it out of the box and then define it based on that. I think that's how we look at the world. We look at money, how we look at the world, and that is that even something that is inherently not good, but if we can elevate it and we can utilize it for the good, then we've infused it with holiness and with goodness. And it comes to the Machzis HaShekel, and the way that Rebbe explains it, at least to the best of my understanding, is that this is on a whole nother level. This is not just that we're infusing the physical with spirituality or with holiness, but we're breaking the rules of the structure of how it's supposed to be or how it normally is, and we're saying it's possible that the holiness becomes the holy and the unholy, or this physical and the spiritual, become one and the same. If I was to utilize this to go back to L'chaper al Nafsheseichem, this is the only way to have real kapara. The only way to truly have real kapara is not to ask for forgiveness and to say, let the past be the past, but to say, how can I take the negativity of the past, of what I've done, and actually turn it into something holy, to make a connection and out of the distance, to turn the richuk into a kiruv. And again, I realize that everything I'm saying is not the ultimate of what the Rebbe says, because I'm still trying to break it down into my own oisias, to be my own words, to be able to make sense of it. But to say it in a way that I can't understand what I'm saying is the Rebbe introduces the concept of the lamaila, the above and the below. They become one and the same. There's no above and below.
I want to jump in here for a second and try and give an example to the best of my ability, but I want to focus on a few words in the Sicha, which really stuck out to me. And I think really, I struggled with this a lot. I'm loving unpacking it together. But these few words really stuck out to me to try to understand what is this story different than everything else. And the Rebbe says in Ois Zion in the middle, left column in the middle of the paragraph, the Rebbe says that about Hashem, about the Eibishter, was hat beretzone boicher gewen in Seder Hishtalshlus, that Hashem chose Seder Hishtalshlus. In other words, Hashem chose the order, the structure. And Pshita, it's obvious, as did Mugbal in Hishtalshlus, that he is not
limited,
bound by those limitations. So what comes to mind for me is like this, and I'm going to try and explain it in my own words. I like taking it into the modern day today. So I'm going to go into social media. That's the easiest way I could say it. And the way I see it is like, you take a platform that everybody's comfortable with, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, or it's TikTok, or whatever, Snapchat, and so on, or WhatsApp, whatever it may be. And behind that program, that app that you downloaded, is code. And some geniuses and very, very capable people, tech gurus, wrote the code for what you're using in the app on your phone. And they wrote it with certain limitations. So if I tell you, send me a picture on WhatsApp, you could send it to me. If you tell me, oh my, you have to smell this smell outside, and I tell you, could you send it to me? You can't send it to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Why can't you send it to me? Because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work that way. You can't send a smell across on a WhatsApp chat. It just doesn't work like that. So So the fact that the fact that we're limited in that app, according to the way the programmer wrote it, makes sense to us. And within that, we work with it in the best and the this and the up and the down, and we're coming and going and doing all kinds of things. But that doesn't mean that the programmer sitting behind his computer doesn't have full control of all that data and could do it. He's not limited by all the things that are simple and clear to you. So in our world, in our app, the up is up and the down is down, and the good is good and the bad is bad. And that's how we work our life. And in that life, we know how to bring good and bad. That take, oh, it's a bad, I'm going to fix it and make it good. And I can put a thumbs up and a heart and a this and now I love you better and this and that. But it's all within what you could do. But then, and that's you say, I'm sorry. And that's the whole back and forth of good and bad. But then there's the idea that that system is a limited system on the outsider. Back to what you were saying before, Moshe, about how you see it. Do you see it from the user perspective or the developer's perspective? In the developer's perspective, it's you guys are a bunch of children playing with my code. There's a place where that code could talk different languages. And the whole bad that you're stuck in your place, you did to me, I can't forgive you, you're off my charts. When there's a chart, and when there's off a chart, and when there's me, and when there's you, then you're off my charts, I'm me, you're you, goodbye, Charlie. But if you could look at the code on the inside out, there's a whole nother perspective to see. So the question is, Masa Shekel, Baisha's seeing, the way I say is seeing something that this whole bad, because you were saying before about forgiveness, I think you're not getting to a higher place where you can forgive. I think you're getting to a place where the bad and the good is not the same bad and good as you see here. You're seeing things in an entirely different viewpoint. It's not making bad good, obviously, because you can't do that in our world, but a place which is so much more true and open and different that the perspective is just something else. And that's what the Rebbe is telling us, that Moshe is like, what does that look like? What this is a different level. Hashem said there's another place which is higher than all of this, which is not, I'm sorry, I've been going on and on and on. But anyway, this is, I guess, in Oisis Pshutis, maybe a perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said. I think practically speaking, is that for me, is not everything. This Sicha is one of those Sichas that you can try and make as much sense of as you want. But, I listened to Mashpia, Rabbi Shor, this morning, and he's like, keeps saying, and Moshe keeps saying in history, it doesn't make sense. And that's okay. It's beautiful to learn a Sicha, which is beyond our seichel. And the Rebbe is sharing with us himmeldige Sachen, things that are the Rebbe's view on the world, things that are godly and heavenly and spiritual. And not every mitzvah that we do has to always make sense and always has to be calculated and has to work. And even, like just on a practical level, like, when we're learning this, the practical meaning from an academic perspective, we spend so much time, and it comes to a point where we're starting to it works with us, it brings these two opposites together. And here the Rebbe is teaching us a Sicha, which he was Magia twice, and once in Hebrew, once in Yiddish, that shows us that there's something beyond our seichel happening when we're doing a mitzvah. And it's not just for, as the Rebbe says at the end, it's not just for Machzas HaShekel, but it's even while this Thursday, we're giving Machzas HaShekel, and that's the mitzvah that we do in a split second when we're hungry, the end of a fast. There's literally, heavenly things happening here. There's a fire that we don't see happening in this coin. And we sometimes in our life have to connect to the Eibusher in a way that's totally beyond logic and totally beyond even whatever we try and understand. And this is a very important lesson for ourselves, for our families, and for people we're trying to influence, that sometimes you can just absolutely be plugged in to something so beyond anything that we understand and that we can physically try and comprehend. And that's my takeaway from what I'm trying to take away from this amazing Sicha.
So I'm going to give my, based on what Yisrael just said, I'll take it, and this will be my conclusionary remarks. And basically, we're used to the fact that we learn a Sicha, and whatever the ceiling was, that never breaks the glass ceiling. There's something higher. This Sicha, it's totally shattered that ceiling. And in a certain sense, what the Rebbe is saying is that any structure, anything that you've convinced yourself, I can't do this. I can't do this because it doesn't make it, it's impossible. There's no such thing. And one of them, besides the fact that I don't fully understand Matbea Shalesh, as mentioned, one of the most mind-blowing things in the Sicha, and I made a stickle chart, I didn't publicize it yet because it's not finished, but I took each word, Matbea Shalesh, Hoitzi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Herohu, L'Moshe, V'Omar, Zeh, and Yitnu. Each word that Rebbe explains, Hoitzi is the Chiddush of Hashem, and Hashem is Dafka Hashem, and not Teir Seichel, had to be through Amir Dafka, and you all learn to Sicha. I think one of the most powerful things, is the Yitnu. It's so easy to say, yeah, the Rebbe said something, I don't understand it. The word Yitnu is, the Rebbe says in the Sicha earlier on, that when the Eibishter says that Yitnu, it becomes possible for a Yid to be able to see this Begilui. So on the one hand, what does that mean? But on the other hand, and even if this takeaway is almost dumbing it down, but especially with the Hira at the end of the Sicha, where the Rebbe applies it to Tzedakah, which earlier on the Rebbe said it's not like tzedakah. Here he brings in tzedakah, and then he brings in the other mitzvahs. The ultimate practical takeaway that one could take from this is there's no such concept when it comes to our relationship with Hashem, when it comes to Torah mitzvah, to say, I can't. This is too high for me. This is beyond. This is something that I can't do. Fakert. The Eibishter said that since he created the whole program, he can break the program. He can transcend the program, and he gave that ability to us. And I think I just just to conclude with the concept of the Eishel Kedusha, one of the things that we could do is to infuse Varamkeit in our Yiddishkeit for ourselves, for our kids, for our people that we have an influence on. When they see that we're passionate about Yiddishkeit, we're passionate about the Rebbe's Torah, when they see the Chayas, they see the closest thing they can get to a Megushim, a Gasmeistic person that is Tachten Shein Tachten Lamate Imenu, and he's infused with an Eish, and they say, okay, this is possible. I can break that glass ceiling.
That's beautiful. I'll just conclude that I think that what makes that all possible, which is essentially the theme of the Sicha, and what you're all saying, is the comfort in knowing that there's an Eibishter that we don't understand, because I don't think any of us want an Eibishter that we do understand. So this Sicha is the same. It's a Rebbe that's greater. It's a vision from higher, and that comfort in the things that we do brings the energy along. So you want to ask yourself, what could I do? How do I infuse everything I do, all the mitzvahs I do, with a greater energy? So when you're feeling it, mazel tov. When you're not feeling it, you know what? You have something beautiful to rely on. An Eibishter that knows a little more than you. An Eibishter that you don't understand. A Sicha that you don't fully understand. A Matbeit Shalesh that Moshe needed to see, and we're still trying to figure out what it is. But that is very comforting. So we'll conclude that the Eibishter should help. That first of all, everybody will do the mitzvah of Machsa Shekel on this Thursday, Mir Hashem, and on top of that, we should see the bracha of this Sicha in all the things that we do. As the Rebbe finishes, not just in the Machsa Shekel, but we could translate that and transform it every single thing that we do, every mitzvah that we do. Afreilach and Purim, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Afreilach and Purim.
Thank you.